I am Lisa Henderson, native of Wilson, North Carolina, and founder of Lane Street Project. So Lane Street Project is a community collective, multi-generational, multiracial, multi-denominational volunteers that works to document and preserve 3 historic African American cemeteries in Wilson. We are standing now in Vick Cemetery, which was founded around 1913. It was a city-owned cemetery. And then we have next to Vick, there is Oddfellows Cemetery, which was founded around 1900, more or less, and belonged to the Oddfellows fraternal organization. And then beyond that, there was Roundtree Cemetery, which belonged to a Baptist church. Lane Street Project began more or less in 2020. It grew out of a blog that I maintain that in which I curate documentation of Wilson County's African American families and history. And I mean, I've known about these cemeteries since I was a child. I grew up not far from here, and I was just sort of drawn to them. At that time, you were not able to see into the cemetery. So I just put out a call, for people to come and just cut some vines, do whatever they could do. This is right before Christmas of 2020, and it was amazing. A couple dozen people showed up, and within the first 15 minutes, we had found the grave marker of Samuel H. Vick, who at one time was Wilson's wealthiest African American citizen. He was a real Renaissance man. He donated the land for Oddfellows. He was an active Oddfellows. He sold the city this land, but as the cemetery was lost, his grave was lost. And so we were able to find his grave to restore his family's, restore honor to their resting place. And that's really what we're trying to do in general. We don't have any big, monumental plan. We just want for these cemeteries to be recognized as sacred spaces, for them to be recognized as places that are important to not only Wilson's African American history, but its history, that they are places that deserve to be taken care of, particularly the city's cemetery. There were once headstones in this cemetery about the city let the cemetery fall into disrepair, closed it in the 1950s, neglected it thereafter. Finally in the 1990s, came through, cleared it out, took the headstones out, later destroyed them, erected a central monument in honor of those who are buried here. We know there are at least 1,500 graves. There are likely many, many more. Last summer there was a ground penetrating radar survey was done of this cemetery. We're still awaiting the results. But late last summer, during the drought, when all of this was gray, a local photographer sent up a drone to do some aerials, and you could see in rows these small green rectangles, and these were the graves. After all this time, the way the ground is disturbed, the grass grows differently above those graves, and they began to reveal themselves. So we're really excited about getting the results of this cemetery, hopeful that the city will follow through with some promises to mark this again as a cemetery. Oddfellows and Roundtrees have different challenges, but we're really heartened again by the response of volunteers. We've had just all kinds of people. I mean, there's a role for everybody out here. Some people are cutting down dead trees, other people are raking, some people are saying prayers, some people are bringing bottled water. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to help. It's, I think, really been a way in some ways of knitting together the community. The project started working here after what's called the George Floyd summer, when Wilson had there was a lot of tension because of certain incidents that occurred that summer during protests in which people were rightfully protesting their police misconduct. And I think the project was a way to sort of bring people together. Yeah, we have cleanups, work days, 2 days a month in winter and early spring. Just the fact that we can see headstones now is incredible. And so that's, we don't have a monumental plan. We're putting one foot in front of the other and doing what we can to reclaim our ancestors, our people.
So what's the Lane Street Project's biggest accomplishment you feel so far?
On the whole, there've been it's been win after win after win. On day one, finding Samuel Vick's grave, it was a tremendous boost. It was amazing. And then over time, really just sort of raising the recognition of this place as a cemetery. I mean, there are generations of Wilsonians who had no idea that's what this was, and just sort of having people now understand when you say Vick Cemetery, when you say Oddfellows Cemetery, when you say Roundtree Cemetery, people know what that is. I mean, there are actually 6 African American cemeteries on this street. If you turn the corner, there are 3 more. Everybody knew those 3, even though they probably don't think they're actually 3, they think it's 1, but everybody knows Rest Haven and Hamilton and the Masonic. Nobody knew these. So sort of raising consciousness about the presence of these cemeteries, and then also sort of starting to raise consciousness about who's here. I'm a big believer in the principle of Sankofa, that in order for you to really move forward, in order for people to understand where they're going, they have to know where they've been. A lot of times when we talk about Black history, here it is February, and there's Frederick Douglass, there's George Washington Carver, there's all incredible people who have done incredible things. But there's also history right here, and I really want people to know about their own people and the things that we were able to achieve, sort of right here on the grounds. There's something that everybody can do. As I said, we have people who are cutting down dead trees, but we also have people that just come out and say a prayer for people who are working here, for their safety. Say a prayer for the ancestors. Keep an eye out when if you drive by. We still unfortunately have vandalism and dumping out here. There are people who sort of drive by and sort of alert us if they see something. People bring water, bring donuts, bring coffee. There's a role for everybody to play. Yeah, so this fence actually marks the boundary between Oddfellows and Vick. And I thought it was important for people who come, sort of not on a work day, to understand what we're doing, to understand what the project is about, and to really connect with this as a cemetery. I think it's a little abstract, especially when you look at Vick and it just looks like a field. And so we've got sort of the 2 people here, Sam Vick and his wife, Annie Washington Vick. Again, their family cemetery was sort of the original core of Oddfellows. He was a founder. He sold the land for Vick Cemetery, and was just really a monumental person in Wilson's African American history. Dempsey Lassiter was among the last burials in Oddfellows. He died in 1948. Actually this photo was his wife published in the paper every year, sort of a memento of him, and so he's one of the headstones that we found here. We've also found a number of references, obituaries in the Wilson Daily Times to burials. They say in Roundtree. Roundtree was kind of the blanket term for all 3 of these cemeteries, so they could have been buried in any one of them. but we know that these folks are here. So I just thought it important to, again, help people understand. We have Smith Bennett, who was a blacksmith. This photo was taken in the 1890s. He, of course, was born enslaved, as was Samuel Vick, but is an important example of skilled craft people that lived in Wilson. And then we have Maria Lipscomb, who was allegedly 100 years old when she died in 1924, is also buried here, and of course would have been born in slavery as well. So as we discover new markers, we will memorialize folks. We're going to come out tomorrow afternoon and tie ribbons, sort of create a memorial wall here that everybody's invited to come out and help with. And as we find new markers, we'll add folks to the memorial wall. This is Oddfellows Cemetery. Again, it was founded by the Oddfellows Masonic Order, or not Masonic Order, I'm sorry, the Oddfellows Fraternal Organization. And so the men and women here, you were able to be buried here by virtue of membership in the Oddfellows or by a family member being a member of the Oddfellows. So we have a lot of early 20th century Black Wilsons, professional class, skilled trades people, really sort of the black middle class of that era. These markers that you see, the kind of narrow marble markers, these were typical of markers that came with a burial here. They have the 3 linked rings, which symbolize the Oddfellows organization. We've recently had the really good fortune of having a professional headstone stone restorer come out and repair and reset some of our headstones that were fallen or were cracked, and we're going to be working with him to do a little more. The 2 headstones that you see sort of on the ridge there are a husband and wife, Della and Dave Barnes. Their son was Dr. B.O. Barnes. There's an elementary school right there on Martin Luther King Parkway named for him. They were another prominent black family in early 20th century, late 19th century Wilson. So this cemetery stretches all the way over to kind of the tree line there, and Roundtree Cemetery is beyond that. And it also stretches back a couple hundred feet. We have cleared out some of the undergrowth. We have reset some of those stones. I found my great-grandmother's stone back in the woods. So there's still lots of work to be done in terms of locating stones and hopefully resetting them in time. One of the ways we can locate graves, even when there's no headstone, is by grave plantings. And so you have things like yucca here. This is not native to the landscape. This would have been planted to mark a grave. So you can see kind of dotted along the forest floor are stands of yucca. If you look kind of in the distance, daffodils, that's another flower. These bulbs are 100+ years old. Daffodils are a flower that were often planted in cemeteries and often mark graves that could not be marked, with a headstone. This Henry Tart is the largest marker that we have in the cemetery, or that we found. It was recently reset, and he was a businessman. It's just a beautiful, this is an amazing stone. He died in 1919, born 1886. And as you can see, he was also a Mason. A lot of the members were both Masons and Oddfellows. So this is the monument that the city placed in Vick Cemetery in the mid-1990s. It serves to memorialize the thousands of buried here, unknown buried here. Again, I say unknown, but you know, any African American person in Wilson whose roots are in Wilson has family in this cemetery. And while this is it's a fine monument, Lane Street Project believes there's more work to be done to remember this place in the way that it should be, to honor our ancestors in the way that they should be honored, and that's what we're out here trying to do. You know, Wilson is like so many southern towns, has has railroad tracks and has, you know, the other side of the tracks, you know, and to kind of knit people across those tracks. I think that's going to be part of Lane Street Project's legacy as well.